Hello everyone. Let's start part B of chapter 1 class 12 psychology. The first topic is about assessment of intelligence. In 1905, your Alfred Binet and Simon, they have made the first attempt to formally measure intelligence. And in 1908, after 3 years, when they revised the scale, they gave the concept of mental age and chronological age. Now, mental age means person's intellectual development which is relative to the people of their age group. So, if I am 17 years old, my mental age should be the average of intellectual development of 17 years old people. Okay, now then comes the chronological age, that means biological age from birth. Now after that, in 1912, William Stern, he devised the concept of your intelligence quotient or IQ. Now IQ formula is that mental age divided by chronological age into 100. The next topic is about IQ score distribution. So if you are going to clearly watch it, you will find that the IQ scores are distributed in such a manner that the scores of most people tend to fall in the middle range of the distribution. Now there are very few people who will either have very high or very low intelligence scores. Now the frequency of the distribution tends to be a bell-shaped curve, which is called as your normal curve, and the distribution is symmetrical around the central value, which is called as your mean. Talking about the classification of the population, we should remember that only 2% of the population have IQ above 130 and they are called as intellectually gifted, and only 2% of the people have IQ scores below 70 and they are called as intellectually disabled. Now there is one table where the IQ range, their descriptive label and their percentage in population is mentioned. Now I am not going to discuss that because it is quite easy for you to understand, and in case you don't have your book, you can refer my notes as well. The next topic is about individual differences in intelligence. Now, as we know, the intelligence of two individuals can never be same because there is individual differences. Now, there was a lot of debate and discussion about what is the prime factor that influence the intelligence, whether it is your heredity, genes, nature, or whether it is your environment. Now, in case of heredity and nature, the studies were conducted upon your identical twins and on your adopted children. Now, in that study, they tried to find out the correlational score between them. Now, in case of identical twin, when they were reared together, means they are in the same house, they got same food, they got same schooling and same environment, the correlational score is 0.90. Now, in case if they are reared apart, mean one identical twin is in Odisha and one identical twin is in Kerala, in that case the correlational score is 0.72. Now then in case of fraternal twins, now if you don't know what fraternal twins means, now they are called as your dizygotic cells. That means when the two separate eggs get fertilized during the pregnancy at the same time, that means that the twins may or may not have the same sex or same gender, but in case of identical twins, they share the same genetic material and they belong to same gender. Okay, so when fraternal twins, they are reared together, the correlational score is 0.60, and in case they are reared apart, we don't have that data. Now when it comes to siblings, means your brother and sisters, if they are reared together, the correlational score is 0.50, and if they are reared apart, the correlational score is 0.25. Now when we come to the study which were conducted on adopted children, it was found that the adopted children intelligence more or less is similar to their biological parents' intelligence rather than their adoptive parents' intelligence. Now, when it comes to environment, it is seen that as the children they grow in age, their intelligence level tends to come closer to the intelligence level of their adoptive parents. And when a child is from a disadvantaged society and gets adopted in a rich family, they show a tremendous increase in their intelligence. It is also seen that your environmental deprivation actually lowers your intelligence, whereas your good schooling, good family, and rich nutrition helps to increase your intelligence level. Now, if we have to get a conclusion out of all this discussion, then we can say that it is 50-50 contribution. That means the heredity gives the range of the individual intellectual development, which is actually shaped by the support and opportunities of the environment. The next topic is about variation in intelligence. Now here comes the term intellectual deficiency. According to Alfred Binet and Simon, they described mental retardation as being to mental age below the chronological age. That means if my chronological age is 17 years but my mental age is 15 years, there is 2 years gap, then definitely I will be judged as mentally retarded. Now, apart from that, there is a definition given by American Association of Mental Deficiency, that is significantly sub-average intellectual functioning existing concurrently with deficits in adaptive behavior, which is manifested during the developmental period. Now, for better understanding, let's divide this definition into 3 basic features. First is, in order to be judged as intellectually deficit, the person must show sub-average intellectual functioning or IQ below 70. The second feature comes about deficits in adaptive behavior. Now, adaptive behavior means person's ability to be independent and deal effectively with their environment. So, if a person is not able to carry out their day-to-day activities, adjust to new environment, then definitely the person may be intellectually deficit. The third feature is that these symptoms or the person should be assessed when the person is in their developmental period, which is between 0 to 18 years of age. Now, there are different levels of intellectual deficiency. Now, first is your mild, where the IQ score is from 55 to approximately 70. After that comes your moderate, where the IQ score is 30 to 45 to approximately 50 to 55. Then comes your severe, where the IQ score is 20 to 25 to approximately 35 to 40, and last is your profound, where the IQ score is below 20 to 25. Then comes the term intellectual giftedness. Now that means from a teacher's point of view, they feel that intellectual giftedness means a combination of high ability, high creativity and high commitment. Now the intellectual giftedness person, they score very high in their IQ, like above 130. Now there are 2 words, that is your giftedness and talent, and from a layman's perspective we feel more or less they are the same words, or they have the same meanings, or they are synonyms. However, there is a lot of difference between the 2 terms. Now giftedness means exceptional general ability to show superior performance in a wide variety of areas. That means if a person is good at academics, also good at sports, also good at singing, dancing, negotiation, being empathetic with persons, so you can see the person is quite good at all areas. Now in that case you can say the person is gifted. The second term is talent. Now talent means showing remarkable ability in specific field, like it can be sports, it can be academics, it can be social, it can be economic, but a specific field. So if there are top performers in a academic, there are top performers in there are top singers, there are top architect, top directors. So you can see they are excelling in a particular field, not in a variety of areas. In that case, you can say the person is talented, and highly talented people are called prodigies. There are certain characteristics of a gifted children. First is advanced logical thinking, problem solving, and questioning. The persons are very good at solving the problems, and they think critically and logically. They are also, they have the high speed in processing the information. There is a high level of original and creative thinking, means they are quite good at finding original and creative solutions to the novel problems. Then comes that they have a high level of intrinsic motivation and self-esteem. Now, intrinsic motivation means the motivation that comes from inside. Now, if you are motivated by the trophies, the prize, the lifestyle, the money that you will get after being in that job, or after cracking that exam, or after winning that competition, definitely here there is extrinsic motivation, because it is something that comes from outside. Now, if you have the vision that I want to be my best version, I want to be an example in front of the society, and I want to really serve my country, here there is intrinsic motivation that comes from inside, and they also have your high level of self-esteem. Then they also prefer to have solitary academic activities for long duration. They want to be alone while involving in academic activities for longer duration. Then is superior generalization and discrimination ability, means they are quite good at discriminating two concepts, ideas, and they are also good at generalizing the concepts on the ideas which are presented to them. The last but not the least is independent and non-conformist thinking. That means that they don't say yes, or they don't conform to every information or every norms they are presented from outside. They try to evaluate it, and after that they form their thinking, which is quite independent thinking, and they don't conform to other ideas or thoughts. The next topic is about types of intelligence tests. Now, based upon the administrative procedure, there are two types of tests. First is your individual test, and second is your group test. Now, in individual test, as the name suggests, it is administered on one person at a time, whereas in group test, it is administered on several people simultaneously. In individual test, the test administrator is required to form rapport with the subject. Now, in case you don't know what rapport formation is, it is actually that you have to be familiar with the subject. You have to ask certain simple questions, that how they are feeling, how was their day, what are their hobbies, and in case the subject is anxious, you have to also calm them down, and after the subject is comfortable at that environment, then you can administer the test. Whereas in group test, it doesn't allow the test administrator to be familiar with subject feeling, because there are a lot of subjects, and it will be quite time taking to form rapport with them. Now, in individual test, the responses can be given orally or in written forms. In group test, the responses mostly are in written forms, which are in MCQ format, where there are 4 options and you have to tick one which is true according to you. Then the examples of individual test is Wechsler intelligence scale and thematic apperception test. Now, about thematic apperception test, you are going to read more elaborately in chapter 2. Example of group test is group test of intelligence by Prayag Mehta. Now, based upon the nature of items used, there are 3 tests. First is your verbal test, second is non-verbal test, and third is your performance test. In verbal test, the subjects are required to give the responses orally or in written format, whereas in your non-verbal test, they use picture and illustration as test items. In performance test, the subject is required to manipulate the objects and actually perform a task. in verbal test, it can be only administered on literate people, because definitely there is a use of language. That's why literate people can only give the response. As in non-verbal test, written response is not necessary, and it is same in case of performance test. Example of verbal test is your Stanford Biness test of intelligence, and non-verbal test example is your Raven progressive matrix. In case I get that picture, I will attach it somewhere here. And the third example of your performance test is it is your Koch-Block design. Based upon the extent of favoring a culture, now there are two types of test. First is culture fair test, and second is culture bias test. In culture fair test, it don't discriminate the examiners or the subjects based upon their culture experience, whereas in your culture bias test, they try to discriminate the people based upon their culture experience. In culture fair test, they give an equal platform or equal chance for all the cultures to perform, whereas in culture bias test, they try to be favorable to some cultures and discriminating other cultures. They sometimes also disrespect the cultural ideas of other people. Then in culture fair test, using non-verbal test and performance test would be great, because in this test there is no use of language, whereas in culture bias test they are mostly verbal test because they require language in it. The examples of culture fair test is your Raven progressive matrix, and then is your culture fair intelligence test by Cattell. And example of culture bias test, it is going to be CIE verbal group test of intelligence by Uday Shankar. The next topic is about intelligent testing in India. So S.M. Mohsin, he made the pioneering attempt to construct intelligent test in Hindi in 1930s. Then C.H. Rice, he tried to standardize Binet's test in Urdu and Punjabi. Then Mahalanobis, he tried to standardize Binet test in Bengali. After that, the Indian researchers, they try to develop the Indian norms for a lot of Western tests. Now, why Indian norms? Since we know there is a lot of differences between two cultures, so we can't just copy paste the Western norms as it is in India. That's why they developed the Indian norms for some Western tests like Raven progressive matrix, Wechsler intelligence scale, and Koch-Block design. Apart from that, Long and Mehta, they have also prepared a mental measurement handbook listing 103 intelligent tests in India, which are available in a variety of languages. Last but not the least is the National Library of Educational and Psychological Testing, that is NLEPT at NCERT. They have also documented Indian test. The next topic is about culture and intelligence. Now, if you remember in class 11 chapter 1, you came across a name Vygotsky, a Russian psychologist who believed that people are culturally constructed. Now, here also, according to him, he feels that culture provides the social context in which a person lives, grow, and they influence it and understand the world around them. Okay, so culture here means a collective system of your customs, beliefs, achievements in art and literature and so on. So it's a quite complex term. According to him, he believed that the primary mental functions of the people, like crying, attending to mother's voice, sensitivity to smell, sensitivity to taste, they are universal, because the babies all around the world, they have that similar mental functions, whereas the manner in which the higher mental functions, like it can be upobservation, analysis, it can be your problem solving, they are largely culturally constructed, because the culture have that influence upon it. Now, last but not the least is about Robert Sternberg notion of contextual or practical intelligence. Now, that also implies that intelligence is a product of culture, because culture provides that idea or the ways how a person can deal effectively with their environment and how they can solve the day-to-day problems. Based upon the culture, there are two types of intelligence. First is technological intelligence and second is the integral intelligence. Now, technological intelligence is Western culture based. So the societies here, they adopt the child rearing practices that develop or foster skills like your generalization, abstraction, minimal moves, speed, accuracy and mental manipulation among children, because these skills are on demand in their society. After that, the persons who belong to these societies, they are well versed in skills like your observation, analysis, achievement orientation, performance, accuracy and so on. Integral intelligence means it is Indian culture based. Here the emphasis is on connection with social and world environment, and here it tries to focus on holistic perspective where equal importance is given to cognitive as well as non-cognitive process. Now, if we are going to see in your technological intelligence, there is more focus on cognitive process, whereas in your integral intelligence the focus is on both. Then there are certain facets or competencies of integral intelligence. First is your cognitive capacity, which includes understanding, sensitivity to context, discrimination and problem solving. After that comes your social competence, which includes respect for social orders, commitment to young, elders, needy and concern about others. Then comes your emotional competence, which includes self-monitoring and self-realization about your emotions, and also honesty and good conduct. Last is your entrepreneurial competence. Here the focus is on your honesty, persistence, hard work and vigilance. Now, there is one word which is called as buddhi. Now, as we know, buddhi is a Sanskrit word to represent intelligence, and the notion of buddhi also has affective or motivational components apart from cognitive ones. That means it is holistic in nature. With this, I want to end this video. If you like my explanation, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell icon, and if you have any kind of doubt, you can comment down below. I would love to clear it all. And if you have any kind of problem while downloading the notes from the link that I have given in the description, you can join my Telegram channel. From that you can get the PDFs of the notes easily. So with this, I sign out. Have a great day.